There's something primal about a big block V8. The deep rumble at idle, the earth-shaking torque, the way it pins you to your seat when you plant your right foot. These weren't efficient, they weren't practical. They were pure American excess distilled into cast iron and forged steel, purpose-built to move mountains and demolish quarter miles. Today, we're counting down the 12 most powerful big block V8 engines of all time. From torque monsters that twisted chassis to race-bred beasts that rewrote the record books. These are the engines that defined an era and proved that sometimes there really is no replacement for displacement. Number 12, Ford 460. Ford's 460 cubic inch V8 doesn't get the respect it deserves. While Chevrolet and Chrysler fans argue about big blocks, Ford's massive 460 quietly powered everything from luxury Lincolns to heavy-duty trucks for nearly 3 decades. This was Ford's largest production V8, displacing 7.5 liters of pure torque that made it the perfect foundation for power. The early versions produced around 365 gross horsepower and 485 pound-feet of torque, impressive numbers that prioritized low-end grunt over high RPM screaming. Ford built the 460 on their massive 385 series block, featuring a 4.36-inch bore and 3.85-inch stroke. The engine breathed through large port cylinder heads and typically wore a single 4-barrel carburetor, creating a combination that delivered effortless power. What made the 460 special was its versatility. In luxury applications, it provided silent, effortless thrust that moved massive Lincolns with surprising grace. In truck applications, it delivered the kind of low-end torque that could pull stumps all day without complaining. And in performance applications, particularly after production ended, the 460 became a drag racing favorite thanks to its massive displacement and bulletproof bottom end. The 460's real strength came from its construction. Ford engineers built this engine tough, with thick cylinder walls, robust main bearings, and a deep skirt block that resisted flex under load. These weren't race engines. They were work engines designed to survive hundreds of thousands of miles hauling heavy loads. That durability made them perfect for hot rodders who discovered the 460's potential. During its production run from 1968 through 1997, the 460 evolved considerably. Early versions made decent power through straightforward engineering. Later emission-strangled versions struggled to break 200 horsepower. But after production ended, the 460 found new life. Performance builders discovered that with proper heads, camshafts, and induction, the massive displacement could produce legitimate race car power while maintaining street manners. Today, the 460 represents one of the best-kept secrets in big block building. While everyone chases Chevrolet 454s and Chrysler Hemis, smart builders grab 460s for a fraction of the cost and build engines that make comparable power. That massive displacement means torque arrives early and stays strong, creating drivability that smaller engines simply can't match. Number 11, Chevrolet 502 Big Block. General Motors. Performance parts created something special in the 1990s. A crate engine that represented the ultimate evolution of Chevrolet's legendary big block architecture. The 502 displaced 8.2 liters, making it the largest production-based big block Chevrolet ever offered. This wasn't just another crate motor. This was decades of big block development distilled into one massive package. The 502 produced between 450 and 502 horsepower depending on configuration, with torque figures exceeding 550 pound-feet. GM engineers achieved these numbers through straightforward displacement and modern technology applied to proven architecture. The engine featured a 4.6-inch bore and 4-inch stroke, creating massive cylinder volume that made power the old-fashioned way, through cubic inches. What separated the 502 from earlier big blocks was refinement. GM incorporated lessons learned from decades of racing and street use, creating an engine that combined traditional big block character with modern reliability. The 502 featured improved oiling systems, better cylinder head designs, and updated valve train components that allowed higher RPM operation without sacrificing durability. The engine became incredibly popular among hot rodders and resto-mod builders who wanted legitimate power without the headaches of rebuilding vintage engines. Drop in a 502, bolt on your accessories, and you had instant muscle, 500 horsepower, and massive torque that made any car feel like a rocket. The reliability factor sealed the deal. These engines came with GM warranties and factory support, eliminating the gambling inherent in vintage engine rebuilds. Performance potential went even further for builders willing to modify. The 502's massive displacement meant it responded beautifully to forced induction, cylinder head upgrades, and camshaft changes. Builders routinely exceeded 700 horsepower with relatively simple modifications, creating street cars that could humiliate modern performance machines while maintaining excellent drivability. The 502 represents the culmination of Chevrolet's big block lineage, proof that classic architecture could still compete in the modern era when properly executed. While newer LS engines might be more efficient, the 502 delivers character and torque that small blocks simply cannot match. That deep rumble, that effortless thrust, that unmistakable big block personality, the 502 proves that sometimes old-school engineering remains the best approach. Number 10, AMC 401. American Motors entered the muscle car wars as a perpetual underdog, lacking the resources and development budgets of Detroit's Big Three. But AMC engineers refused to surrender without a fight, creating the 401 cubic inch V8, their largest and most powerful engine. This was AMC's statement piece, proof that independent manufacturers could still build legitimate performance engines. The 401 produced 330 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque in street trim. Those numbers might seem modest compared to Chrysler Hemis or Chevrolet LS6s, but context matters. AMC conservatively rated their engines, and real-world performance suggested outputs significantly exceeded factory claims. The 401 featured a 4.17-inch bore and 3.57-inch stroke, creating an undersquare design that prioritized torque over high RPM power. What made the 401 interesting was its character. Unlike some big blocks that felt crude and unrefined, the AMC engine delivered smooth, progressive power that made it surprisingly civilized for daily driving. AMC engineers focused on drivability, creating an engine that idled smoothly, pulled strongly from low RPM, and didn't require constant maintenance to remain reliable. The 401 featured a robust bottom end with thick cylinder walls and heavy-duty main bearing caps that could withstand years of hard use without complaints. AMC designed the valve train for longevity rather than peak power, using hydraulic lifters that required minimal adjustment and delivered quiet operation even after high mileage. The cooling system was oversized and efficient, preventing the overheating issues that plagued many contemporary big blocks during stop-and-go traffic. Fuel delivery came through a single 4-barrel carburetor that provided excellent throttle response without the tuning headaches of multiple carb setups. The exhaust manifolds were cast iron rather than tubular headers, prioritizing ground clearance and durability over maximum flow. Oil consumption stayed remarkably low, even in high-mileage examples, testament to AMC's conservative piston ring design and proper cylinder wall finish. The ignition system used proven components that rarely failed, avoiding the exotic distributors and complex timing mechanisms that made some performance engines temperamental. Vibration levels remained impressively low throughout the RPM range thanks to careful balancing and robust engine mounts that isolated the drivetrain from the chassis. Parts availability stayed reasonable even after AMC's demise, with many components sharing dimensions with other American V8s and allowing creative sourcing solutions. This combination of reliability, smoothness, and adequate performance made the 401 an excellent choice for enthusiasts who wanted muscle car capability without sacrificing daily driver practicality. The 401 powered AMC's performance models, including the AMX and Javelin, where it provided legitimate muscle car credentials. Quarter-mile times hovered around 14.2 seconds, respectable performance that put AMC cars ahead of many competitors. On the street, the 401's torque made AMC muscle cars feel stronger than their horsepower number suggested, delivering the kind of effortless acceleration that makes driving enjoyable. Production stayed limited by AMC's financial constraints and market position. The company simply couldn't build engines in the volumes that GM, Ford, and Chrysler managed. That scarcity makes genuine 401-powered AMC muscle cars increasingly valuable today, representing one of the most underappreciated chapters in American performance history. The 401 proved that displacement and clever engineering could overcome budget limitations. While AMC lacked the resources for exotic materials or cutting-edge technology, they built an honest, capable big block that delivered real performance. Today's collectors increasingly recognize the 401's significance as one of the last true performance engines from an independent American manufacturer. Number 9. Dodge 440 six-pack. Chrysler's 440 cubic inch V8 earned legendary status in street racing circles, but the six-pack version elevated it to something transcendent. 3 Holley 2-barrel carburetors sat atop a special aluminum intake manifold, feeding 7.2 liters of Mopar Fury. This wasn't subtle. This was brute force engineering that prioritized maximum airflow and instant throttle response over sophistication. The 440 six-pack produced 390 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, numbers that made it one of the strongest street engines available. The triple carburetor setup worked progressively, with the center carb handling cruising duties, while the outboard carbs opened under hard acceleration. That progressive action delivered docile street manners, combined with devastating performance when you mashed the throttle. What made the six-pack special was its character. The engine idled with a menacing lope that announced serious intentions. Plant your right foot and those outboard carbs opened with a mechanical roar, dumping fuel and air into cylinders hungry for more. The 440 responded with a wave of torque that overwhelmed tires and common sense in equal measure. This was visceral, mechanical performance that modern engines simply cannot replicate. Quarter-mile times consistently fell into the mid-13-second range, performance that embarrassed many more expensive cars. On the street, the six-pack 440 became legendary for its ability to surprise unsuspecting competitors. The setup looked intimidating under the hood, and it delivered performance to match its appearance. Those 3 chrome air cleaners sitting atop the intake became one of muscle cars' most iconic images. Chrysler offered the six-pack in multiple models, including Dodge Chargers, Plymouth Roadrunners, and various other B-body platforms. Production numbers stayed relatively limited, making genuine six-pack cars increasingly valuable today. Most lived hard lives, driven aggressively by owners who appreciated the engine's capabilities. Survivors command premium prices, particularly cars retaining original drivetrains. The 440 six-pack represents peak muscle car excess, 3 carburetors feeding massive displacement in service of straight-line acceleration. This wasn't efficient or sophisticated. This was American performance at its most honest, delivering power through cubic inches and airflow rather than technology and complexity. Number 8. Oldsmobile 455 W30. Oldsmobile doesn't get enough credit in muscle car conversations, overshadowed by Chevrolet, Pontiac, and Mopar. But Olds engineers built one of the strongest street engines ever, the 455 cubic inch W30. This was Oldsmobile's ultimate expression of big block performance, combining 7.5 liters of displacement with sophisticated engineering that created devastating real-world capability. The W30 version produced 370 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque, numbers that understated actual output significantly. Oldsmobile conservatively rated the W30 to avoid insurance scrutiny, but magazine testing and drag strip results told the real story. This engine made considerably more power than advertised, with dyno testing suggesting outputs approaching 400 horsepower at the flywheel. What separated the W30 from base 455s was attention to detail. Oldsmobile included ported cylinder heads, a hotter camshaft, low restriction exhaust, and functional ram air induction, fed by that distinctive fiberglass hood with twin scoops. The combination transformed the already strong 455 into something genuinely fast, capable of low 14-second quarter miles when properly equipped. The W30's real strength came from its torque curve. That massive 500 pound-feet arrived at just 3,000 RPM, overwhelming tires from idle to redline. First gear became a smoke show. Second gear required caution. The 455 pulled like a freight train, delivering the kind of effortless acceleration that makes driving addictive. This wasn't peaky race car power. This was broad, usable torque that worked everywhere. Oldsmobile offered the W30 primarily in the 442, where it created one of the most complete muscle cars available. The combination of power, handling, and luxury made the W30 442 a sophisticated performer that could embarrass cruder competitors, while maintaining civilized street manners. Production stayed limited, with roughly 1,000 W30 packages built for 1970. Today, the Oldsmobile 455 W30 represents one of the most undervalued muscle car engines. While collectors chase Chevelles and Mopars, smart enthusiasts recognized the W30 as one of Detroit's finest achievements, an engine that combined massive torque with surprising sophistication, creating performance that remains impressive decades later. Number 7. Pontiac 455 HO. Pontiac built their reputation on performance, and the 455 high output represented their largest and strongest street engine. Displacing 7.5 liters, the HO version produced 335 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque in 1971. Impressive numbers achieved, despite tightening emissions regulations that strangled most competitors. The 455 HO featured Pontiac's trademark over-square architecture with a 4.15-inch bore and 4.2 one-inch stroke. Pontiac engineers included higher compression pistons, a more aggressive camshaft, and improved cylinder heads that maximized airflow. The result was an engine that delivered strong performance despite the regulatory headwinds facing the entire industry. What made the Pontiac 455 special was its character. Unlike some big blocks that felt crude, the Pontiac delivered smooth, progressive power that rewarded skilled driving. The engine pulled strongly from low RPM, building power consistently to redline. That broad power band made the 455 incredibly versatile, equally at home cruising highways or attacking drag strips. The HO version found its home primarily in GTOs and Trans Ams, where it provided legitimate muscle car credentials during the early 70s Malaise era. Quarter-mile times stayed in the mid-14-second range, respectable performance that kept Pontiac competitive when many manufacturers had abandoned performance entirely. On the street, the 455 HO's torque made Pontiacs feel quicker than their numbers suggested. Production continued only briefly before emissions regulations and insurance pressures killed the high-performance market. Pontiac built the 455 HO for just a few years, making genuine examples increasingly scarce today. Most survivors have been modified heavily, with unmolested examples commanding premium prices among collectors who recognize the engine's historical significance. The Pontiac 455 HO represents one of the last true muscle car engines, built during that brief window when manufacturers still cared about performance, despite regulations making it increasingly difficult. Today's collectors appreciate the 455 as proof that Pontiac refused to surrender without a fight, continuing to build strong engines even as competitors retreated. Number 6. Buick Stage 1455. Buick shocked the automotive world with their Stage 1455, a torque monster that proved luxury brands could build devastating performance engines. The Stage 1 produced an official 360 horsepower, but that number was laughably conservative. Real output likely exceeded 400 horses, with torque figures that remain legendary. 510 pound-feet at just 2,800 RPM. That torque number deserves emphasis. 510 pound-feet represented the highest torque rating of any production muscle car engine, period. The Stage 1 made more twists than Hemi engines, more than LS6 Chevelle, more than anything else you could buy from an American dealership. That massive torque transformed the driving experience, overwhelming tires at virtually any speed, and delivering acceleration that felt stronger than the horsepower numbers suggested. Buick achieved these results through intelligent engineering rather than exotic materials. The 455 featured a 4.31-inch bore and 3.9-inch stroke, creating slightly under-square geometry that prioritized torque. Buick included better cylinder heads, a hotter camshaft, and improved breathing that maximized low-end grunt. The combination delivered power that shocked competitors and magazine testers alike. Motor Trend tested a Stage 1 GSX and recorded a 13.38-second quarter mile at 105.5 miles per hour, numbers that made it faster than most Hemi cars. Motor Trend declared it the quickest American production car they had ever tested. That wasn't marketing hype, that was verified fact. Buick had created something genuinely special, a muscle car that could dominate drag strips while maintaining Buick's traditional luxury and refinement. The Stage 1's reputation grew as word spread about its capabilities. Early buyers secured reasonable insurance rates because underwriters underestimated Buick's performance credentials. But after magazine tests confirmed the Stage 1's dominance, premiums skyrocketed. The combination of devastating performance and Buick's luxury image created something unique in muscle car history. Today, Stage 1 equipped Buicks command six-figure prices, finally receiving recognition matching their capabilities. The 455 Stage 1 proved that technology and intelligence could overcome displacement disadvantages, that torque mattered more than horsepower, and that Buick engineers understood performance as well as anyone in Detroit. Number 5. Chevrolet ZL1427. Chevrolet created something extraordinary with the ZL1427, an all-aluminum race engine barely civilized for street use. This was the rarest and most exotic big block Chevrolet ever offered through regular dealer channels, with production staying microscopic and performance staying stratospheric. The ZL1 represented Chevrolet's ultimate expression of big block technology. The ZL1 displaced 427 cubic inches, but used an all-aluminum block and heads that reduced weight by over 100 pounds compared to iron engines. Official output was 430 horsepower, but everyone knew those numbers were fiction. Real output likely approached 500 horses, with the ZL1 making power everywhere from idle to redline. This was race car engineering applied to street cars, creating something genuinely special. What made the ZL1 extraordinary was its construction. The aluminum block featured reinforced main bearing caps, cross-bolted for strength. Forged internals could survive sustained high RPM abuse. Rectangle port cylinder heads flowed massive air. A single Holley 4-barrel carburetor fed the beast, delivering fuel with mechanical precision. Every component was chosen for maximum performance rather than cost or convenience. The ZL1 found its home primarily in COPO Camaros, dealer-ordered special builds that circumvented GM's displacement restrictions. Only 69 ZL1 Camaros left the factory, making them among the rarest muscle cars ever built. Each one cost serious money. The ZL1 option added over $4,000 to the Camaro's base price, effectively doubling the cost. Most buyers were racers who understood the ZL1's potential and didn't care about the expense. Quarter-mile performance was devastating. ZL1 Camaros could run mid-12-second times bone stock, performance that embarrassed purpose-built race cars. The combination of reduced weight and massive power created acceleration that felt explosive, pinning drivers to seats and overwhelming tires, despite wide rubber and advanced chassis tuning. The ZL1 felt alive, mechanical, responsive in ways modern engines cannot replicate. Today, genuine ZL1 Camaros represent some of the most valuable muscle cars in existence, regularly selling for 7 figures at auction. That appreciation reflects recognition of the ZL1's significance as Chevrolet's ultimate big block achievement, an engine that combined exotic materials with race-bred engineering, creating something that remains impressive decades later. Number 4. Chevrolet 427 L88. Chevrolet's L88 represented their ultimate Corvette big block, an engine so focused on racing that it barely qualified as street legal. Official output was 430 horsepower, but that number was pure fiction, designed to keep insurance companies and NASCAR officials happy. Real output approached 560 horses, making the L88 one of the strongest production engines ever built. The L88 featured Chevrolet's 427 cubic inch architecture, pushed to its absolute limits. The engine breathed through open-chamber aluminum heads with massive ports that flowed extraordinary air. A radical solid-lifter camshaft kept valves open longer and lifted them higher, maximizing cylinder filling. Compression ratio hit 12.5 to 1, demanding racing fuel for reliable operation. A single Holley 4-barrel carburetor fed the beast, though many owners immediately upgraded to multiple carbs. What separated the L88 from regular big blocks was its focus. Chevrolet didn't build the L88 for street use. They built it for racing. The engine idled rough, required constant maintenance, and delivered miserable fuel economy. But on the track, the L88 dominated everything. Corvettes equipped with L88 engines won races across multiple series, proving the engine's capabilities against purpose-built competition. Production stayed deliberately limited. Chevrolet built only 216 L88 engines across 3 years from 1967 through 1969. Each one cost over $1,000 as an option. Serious money that reflected the L88's exotic construction and race-oriented engineering. Most buyers were serious racers who immediately stripped their Corvettes and went racing. Street-driven L88 Corvettes were rare even when new. Quarter-mile times fell into the mid-11-second range with proper gearing and traction. performance that embarrassed contemporary supercars, costing 3 times as much. On road courses, L88 Corvettes could run with genuine race cars. Their combination of power and relatively light weight creating lap times that shocked competitors. The L88 proved that American manufacturers could build engines matching or exceeding anything from Europe. Today, 88 Corvettes represent some of the most valuable American performance cars, regularly selling for 7 figures at major auctions. That appreciation reflects recognition of the L88's significance as Chevrolet's most extreme production big block, an engine that proved American engineering could compete at the highest levels when properly executed. Number 3. Ford Boss 429. Ford created something special for NASCAR homologation, the Boss 429, a hand-built semi-Hemi engine designed to dominate superspeedways. Official output was 375 horsepower, but that number was pure fiction. Real output approached 500 horses, making the Boss 429 one of the strongest engines Ford ever built. The Boss 429 featured unique hemispherical combustion chambers with canted valves that improved breathing dramatically. Ford engineers borrowed technology from their racing programs, creating an engine that combined exotic architecture with bulletproof construction. Each Boss 429 was hand-assembled at Ford's Carcraft facility, receiving individual attention that production engines never saw. What made the Boss 429 extraordinary was its rarity and purpose. Ford built the engine specifically to qualify for NASCAR, meaning they had to produce enough street versions to satisfy homologation requirements. Ford installed Boss 429s in Mustangs, creating one of the strangest muscle cars ever, a pony car nose-heavy, with a massive NASCAR engine barely fitting between shock towers. Production stayed deliberately limited. Ford built only about 850 Boss 429 Mustangs across 2 years, making them among the rarest factory muscle cars. Each one required extensive chassis modifications to accommodate the massive engine. Ford raised shock towers, modified front suspension, and reinforced the engine bay to handle the engine's weight and torque. The result was a Mustang that felt nothing like standard models. Quarter-mile performance stayed respectable rather than spectacular. The Boss 429's weight and conservative factory tuning limited straight-line acceleration, but the engine's potential became obvious once racers started modifying. With proper heads, camshafts, and carburation, the Boss 429 could produce over 600 horsepower while maintaining remarkable reliability. That combination made it a favorite among drag racers and NASCAR teams for decades. Today, Boss 429 Mustangs command 6-figure prices, recognized as some of the most significant muscle cars ever built. The engine proved that Ford could build exotic, hand-assembled power plants, matching anything from competitors, creating a legacy that survives in enthusiast circles worldwide. Number 2. Chrysler 426 Hemi. Some engines transcend their specifications and become legends. The Chrysler 426 Hemi represents that rare achievement, an engine so dominant, so utterly devastating in its performance, that it earned the nickname Elephant Motor and became synonymous with American muscle. This wasn't just another big block, this was the engine that defined an era. The Hemi displaced 426 cubic inches through a 7-liter V8 with hemispherical combustion chambers that gave the engine its name. Those dome-shaped chambers allowed larger valves positioned opposite each other at 58.5 degrees, maximizing airflow and combustion efficiency. Official output was 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, but everyone knew those numbers were conservative. Real output likely exceeded 475 horses. What made the Hemi special was its architecture. The hemispherical combustion chambers created nearly perfect flame propagation, burning fuel more completely and generating higher cylinder pressures. Those massive valves, 2.25 inches intake, 1.94 inches exhaust, flowed extraordinary air. Dual Carter 4-barrel carburetors fed the beast, delivering fuel with mechanical precision. Every component was engineered for maximum performance. The Hemi dominated everywhere it competed. In NASCAR, Hemi-powered cars swept Daytona in 1964, prompting rule changes designed to slow them down. In drag racing, Hemis set records across multiple classes, proving unbeatable with proper tuning. On the street, Hemi cars could run mid-13-second quarter miles bone stock, performance that embarrassed everything except purpose-built race cars. Chrysler offered the street Hemi from 1966 through 1971 in multiple models, including Chargers, Roadrunners, Cudas, and Challengers. Production stayed limited. Chrysler built only about 11,000 street Hemis total. The engine's high cost and brutal insurance premiums kept numbers low. Most buyers were serious enthusiasts who understood the Hemi's significance and didn't care about practical concerns. What separated the Hemi from other big blocks was its completeness. This wasn't just powerful, it was beautifully engineered, combining exotic architecture with bomb-proof construction. Hemis could survive sustained high RPM abuse that destroyed other engines. They responded brilliantly to modifications, with built Hemis producing over 1,000 horsepower while maintaining streetability. The Hemi represented American engineering at its absolute finest. Today, Hemi-powered muscle cars command astronomical auction prices, regularly selling for seven figures. A 1971 Hemi Cuda convertible brought $3.5 million in 2014. That appreciation reflects recognition of the Hemi's significance as one of the greatest engines ever built, proof that American manufacturers could create world-class power plants when regulations and accountants didn't interfere. Number 1. Chevrolet 454 LS6. Some engines defined entire eras, others set records that survived decades. The 1970 Chevrolet 454 LS6 did both, becoming the most powerful production engine ever offered by an American manufacturer. This wasn't just another big block. This was the absolute pinnacle of the muscle car era, proof that Detroit could build engines matching anything in the world. The LS6 displaced 454 cubic inches through a 7.4-liter V8 that produced an official 450 horsepower at 5,600 RPM and 500 pound-feet of torque at 3,600 RPM. Those numbers represented the highest factory rating ever, making the LS6 the king of muscle car engines. But those numbers told only half the story. The LS6 made considerably more power than advertised. What made the LS6 extraordinary was its engineering. Chevrolet built the engine on their Mark IV big block architecture, featuring a 4.25-inch bore and 4-inch stroke. The LS6 breathed through rectangular port aluminum cylinder heads with massive valves. An 800 CFM Holley 4-barrel carburetor fed the beast atop an aluminum intake manifold. Compression hit 11.25 to 1 through forged aluminum pistons, riding on forged steel connecting rods and a forged steel crankshaft. Solid lifters and a radical camshaft kept valves open longer and lifted them higher, maximizing cylinder filling. Every component was chosen for maximum performance. 4-bolt mains anchored the crankshaft. Deep groove accessory pulleys prevented belt slip at high RPM. Special oil pans ensured adequate lubrication during hard cornering and acceleration. The LS6 represented everything Chevrolet learned from decades of racing and street performance, distilled into one brutally effective package. Performance was devastating. Magazine testing recorded quarter-mile times of 13.44 seconds at 108.17 miles per hour, numbers that made the LS6 Chevelle the quickest production car available. CarCraft recorded 13.12 at 107 miles per hour with slightly different gearing. 0 to 60 arrived in 6 flat. These weren't happy accidents. These were repeatable results that proved the LS6's dominance. On the street, the LS6 was utterly overwhelming. That massive torque arrived low and stayed strong to redline, creating acceleration that pinned passengers to seats and overwhelmed tires at virtually any speed. First gear became a smoke show. Second gear required skill and courage. Third gear still broke traction if you weren't careful. The LS6 felt alive, mechanical, visceral in ways modern engines cannot replicate. Chevrolet built only 4,475 LS6 engines in 1970, split between Chevelle, coupes, convertibles, and even a handful of El Caminos. Each one cost serious money. The LS6 option added nearly $1,000 to a base Chevelle, creating a car that approached Corvette pricing. But buyers who could afford it got the ultimate muscle car engine, the most powerful production power plant Detroit ever built. By 1971, the LS6 was gone. Emissions regulations and insurance pressures forced Chevrolet to detune the engine, reducing output to 425 horsepower. After 71, the LS6 disappeared entirely, a casualty of changing regulations and shifting market priorities. The 1970 version stood alone as the pinnacle, the absolute summit of American big block development. Today, genuine LS6 Chevelle command astronomical prices, regularly selling for over $300,000. LS6 convertibles bring over $1 million. That appreciation reflects recognition of the LS6's significance as the most powerful production engine ever built. The final proof that American manufacturers could create world-class power plants when given freedom to engineer without compromise. The LS6 represented everything muscle cars stood for: displacement, power, and performance without apology or restraint. These weren't just engines, they were statements. Proof that American engineers could build power plants matching anything in the world. Some dominated drag strips, others ruled NASCAR. All of them delivered the kind of tire-smoking, earth-shaking performance that defined an era and proved that sometimes more really is better. Which of these legendary big blocks would you build into your dream machine? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you love stories from the golden age of cubic inches and horsepower, hit subscribe for more automotive history that matters.